What's up, everybody? Ryan Michael Ballo here to talk about Shankhpushpi. 2 years ago, I sourced in a bunch of ingredients. It was more than 2 years ago now, probably 2.5 years ago. 50 different ingredients to take those ingredients and concoct a combination of those ingredients to make the best nootropic stack, which eventually became the Cortex Gen 1 stack. We refined it to 4 ingredients out of 50. Some of those were the racetam, one of those were Nootropic, and one of them was an ingredient I can't remember off the top of my head because I can't really pronounce it well, that is implicated in facilitating the production of nerve growth factor. We didn't end up putting it in the stack because I think it fell in the kill list of CGMP, which is it stands for Current Good Manufacturing Practices, and there is like a list of ingredients you can't use if you want to abide by those rules and the mandate handed down by the FDA. So we couldn't use it. But in that group of 50 compounds, 50 or so compounds, was Shankhpushpi, this Ayurvedic herb. For about 3 months, Shankhpushpi was in the Cortex stack. It was in the beta stacks of the Cortex stack. We took it out of the Cortex stack because we were able to refine the stack to make it great, and Shankhpushpi added a sedative effect to it that slightly mitigated some of the stimulatory effects of Cortex. Cortex is very stimulatory. You take it and 30 minutes later you're like, wow, it's like, I don't need to drink coffee, I want to work down, it lasts a long time. And Shankhpushpi was sort of negating a little bit of that, so we took it out. But it's still an incredibly interesting compound individually as a nootropic, and here's a couple of reasons why. There are two majorly interesting things about Shankhpushpi. Number one is that it's not just one compound, it's actually 4 different compounds together in one compound. We wrote a blog post about this where we name all those compounds, and this video will eventually go on the Cortex blog, livecortex.com/blog, where we've got a ton of information about every nootropic in the book. Where we will list all of the different compounds that are in Shankhpushpi. But if you just Google it, you'll find an abstract, a PubMed abstract, where it talks about Shankhpushpi improving intellect, where it lists all 4 of the compounds. So that's number one, how this is awesome. 4 different compounds in one nootropic, making one major herbal nootropic from Ayurveda, which is awesome, and is where ashwagandha comes from, which is also awesome. The second cool thing about Shankhpushpi is that it is one of those nootropics that does not have a significant subjective feel, but has a noticeable functional improvement. For me, Shankhpushpi improves my memory, it improves my debate capacity, and it improves, which is one of the terms often used in Ayurveda around this herb, general feelings of intellect. What does that mean? Sounds very vague, right? Not really. If I sit down and have a debate with somebody where I need to access a bunch of information and I need to be able to formulate sentences well, and I need to be able to convey my message and be articulate, that's sort of a general expression of my intellect at the time. And my ability to be intellectual in those conversations, like a debate, like a political debate or something, is improved when I take Shankhpushpi. And that is the common effect that people get when they take this incredible herb. So it's a compound with 4 different compounds in it that make one compound called Shankhpushpi. Number one, important thing. And number two, it doesn't have a subjective feel. Maybe a little bit of anxiolytic stuff I feel when I take it for an hour or 2 hours, but mostly I just notice improvements in memory, improvements in intellect, improvements in information recall, and improvements in verbal fluency. This one time, this is like a sort of an aside that people can experiment with, and who knows if it's going to work for you, but it worked for me. I took 500 milligrams of Shankhpushpi, which, by the way, is the standard dose that I would suggest taking by itself. Let's just get that out of the way. 500 milligrams is the dose for Shankhpushpi. You could start lower and just sort of see where you're at. 500 milligrams is going to work for most people. I took that with 500 milligrams of artichoke extract. This is just an experiment folks might want to try because this was pretty powerful for me. And I was sitting around with a friend of mine at my apartment here, and we had both polished off 3/4 of a bottle of wine each. So we were like pretty toasted at that point. And we were trying to remember this guy's name that was in a business networking meetup that we used to go to, and we couldn't remember the guy's name. We sat there for 30 minutes like talking about it. We're like, do you remember the guys? After 30 minutes, we're like, you still don't remember? We were like, we're brain dead. I took this stack in the beginning of that conversation, and as it's, I took the 500 milligram Shankhpushpi. And as it starts to kick in, probably after right around minute 30 of that conversation, I remembered the guy's name. It's like floodgates open where I could finally access this dude's name, and boom, it was right there, and it said the guy's name. So anecdotal report, yes. Good probability of getting a good effect for my N equals 1 from taking 500 milligrams Shankhpushpi, 500 milligrams artichoke extract. For you, possibly. You'll want to try it. But I think that was an interesting story to include nonetheless, because Shankhpushpi was a major part of that. We don't really know the mechanisms because they're not divulged. Nobody knows the mechanisms, so who knows? Where do you get it? On the blog post where we talked about this, you can Google the nootropic benefits or effects of Shankhpushpi and live Cortex and find it. We link to a couple no affiliation Amazon links that have either bulk powder, which for those of you who make capsules, you can make your own capsules of 500 milligrams or whatever you want to start from 200 milligrams, move your way up, just experiment and see what works for you. That's how experimentation should be. And then, we also link to capsules of, I believe, 500 milligrams. That's what I've got. I've got capsules of 500 milligrams of a bag of Shankhpushpi that was literally sourced from India. So that's where you can get it. Check that out. Amazon it, Shankhpushpi, and see what you can find. Overall, the major takeaway that I want to get people to understand is that this is significant because, again, not very much of a subjective feel, but a definite functional improvement in areas of the brain that really matter. If you have not tried the Cortex Nootropic stack, this is our stack that we talked about, which almost had Shankhpushpi in it, which combines uridine monophosphate, one of the most popular, one of the most effective nootropic compounds there is. These days, uridine's getting a lot more attention because people are taking it and being like, wow. And go read the Reddit posts about uridine and go read what people say when they combine uridine and CDP choline together. Quite the interesting stack. Everybody from U.S. Army personnel to college students, a lot of college students. I mean, disproportionate amount of college students using Cortex. To regular people that are nootropics experimenters, to moms in Canada, to business people, Wall Street personnel. Everybody in between is using Cortex and loving it. So snag yourself a bottle at livecortex.com. Go get yourself some Shankhpushpi, and thanks for watching.